Hello, good night. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions, and I have a great topic for you tonight. Now, it is a type of situation that no one wants to be in, right? Where you lose a spouse and you're trying to pick up the pieces after you've left your spouse. But nevertheless, it is an important topic to talk about. And so I'm going to tell you what the options are for a widow or widower of a U.S. citizen if that U.S. citizen passes while sponsoring their spouse, or even before they get to sponsor or petition for their spouse. There are options. That's the good news, and I'll tell you exactly how that works. Now, let me remind you that I am U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm also here most nights, if not all nights, to answer your U.S. immigration related questions. So put your questions in the comments. Don't worry about your topic not being related to your question, not being related to the topic that I'm talking about tonight. It can be anything that's immigration related. I would happily answer those questions. And before I start, I already see a question. So any immigration asylum immigrant can apply the work permit after denied the individual hearing. So Panka, you cannot apply for a work permit if you don't qualify through some sort of benefit or relief. And so if you were denied asylum at the individual hearing, and you're eligible for something else. So for example, if you got cancellation of removal, if you got another type of relief, so not cancellation of removal, or if you got cancellation of removal or some other form of benefit that could lead to you getting your work permit still. But if you get denied for asylum and you are ordered deported, then that is going to be a case where I'd have to evaluate whether you have other options available even after you've been ordered removed. Hi there, Vince. It's nice to see you. So I see something post on your Instagram about nursing. Can you explain? So sure. So right now, the nurses and physical therapists are professions that are listed on what's called the Schedule A. So these are listed on the Schedule A because right now there are a shortage of these, and because of there's a shortage, they're allowing these to go forward without the labor certification. So because there's no competing against a U.S. person, because they're short of even qualified U.S. people who can fill those positions. So as a result, if you do qualify as a nurse in your country, so if you're in your country, you take certain tests, and you do have an employer, of course, because the employer, in this case, the employer would still have to apply for you. In that case, you would be able to, your employer would be able to petition for you. Keep in mind, though, that because of the shortage, if you do have enough experience to qualify for, or you have an advanced degree, you could also qualify under what's called the exceptional ability or the national interest waiver, where you could possibly petition on your own, but I would have to evaluate your qualifications. In all of these, I would have to evaluate your qualifications. In the where your employer is going to petition you under EB3, I would have to represent the employer. So if you would like to determine what your options are, if you're a nurse, you want to figure out if this is a possibility for you, you can always schedule a consultation. All right, so now keep in mind, Ketora, I don't place nurses in these positions. I represent mostly the employer. If the employee needs representation to understand their rights or to deal with other aspects of the application, like the waiver process, I can also do that. But you're going to have to schedule the consultation for me to determine whether you qualify and how I can help you. Yes, Anus Simon, I am a U.S. immigration attorney, so I help clients to get status and their green card in the United States. So my sister has a deferred action U visa. She is about to get married. Can she have a green card? So that is a possibility if she is married to a U.S. citizen, even if she's married to a legal permanent resident. But how she goes about it is going to depend on so many different factors. How did she come into the country? Now she has a U status, but when she's applying for permanent resident, she still would have to go about getting a waiver if she incurred unlawful presence and she's with a legal permanent resident. So Tanichi, this is touching on more complex issues, which requires a lot of follow-up questions to determine whether marriage could work to get permanent residence. So go ahead, tell your sister to call and schedule a consultation, and I can sift through those facts. So is it possible to apply for the children's British passports before obtaining their US passports? So Finn's mommy, you know, if they qualify for British passports, then that would be something you could do. So if they're dual citizens, you can choose which passport you want. However, keep in mind, if they're leaving the United States and they need to come back in, they're going to have their U.S. passports. And also keep in mind, Finn's mommy, that I cannot give you a definitive answer on the live just because I don't have the ability to ask you follow-up questions. While dual citizens, they have multiple passports all the time. It is not something that's unusual, and you can choose which passport you're going to apply for the kids. It's general information. You know, just one fact could make a difference. So keep that one in mind. Would I have to return home and apply for another work visa after my OPT expires? It may be a possibility. Now, if your OPT expire, you have current status and you have an employer who is going to apply for you, it may be a possibility to stay and adjust status. But Cheyenne, it's really going to come down to how do you qualify? If you have OPT, how do you qualify to go from OPT to another type of status? There are so many different ways that you can do this, but it's based on your circumstances, based on your situation, based on your qualifications. And so I urge you to schedule a consultation so I can fully evaluate your facts and determine what may be best for you. Now, I'm also on YouTube, so feel free to put your questions in the comments on YouTube as well. I'm here to answer your questions. My dad got married to a U.S. citizen, but they got divorced before he got his green card. So Dane 4335, even if they're divorced, if the part of the reason is that there was mistreatment by that U.S. citizen spouse, and it's been less than 2 years since they've been divorced, VAWA may still be an option. VAWA is a situation where if your spouse, the U.S. citizen or resident spouse, was mistreating you verbally, mentally, emotionally, maybe physically, but physically is not necessarily required, and even financially, then you could apply for your own permanent residence, your own work permit, your own status in the United States. I would have to evaluate your dad's situation. So you can always share my information with your dad, and he can schedule an appointment to discuss his situation and determine whether that's an option. So they said we don't have to have a labor certification. What does that mean? So the labor certification is a process where you, so usually when you're applying through an employer, you have a three-step process. So the first is to do the labor certification with the Department of Labor. This is to make sure that you as the immigrant, your position is not taking away from a similarly qualified U.S. person. you getting that job. And so you have to go through a process at the Department of Labor to make sure and have their approval to make sure that the position is good here and it's not unfair to a U.S. person. After that, then the employer submits the petition. And then once the petition is processed, then it would go through either adjustment of, once it's approved, it goes through adjustment of status, or it goes through consular processing, meaning that you'd have to attend the interview at your embassy if you're in another country. So go ahead, Keturah, if this is something you're considering or you have an employer, go ahead, schedule that consultation so we can talk. Is there a phone number or link where one can book the appointment? Absolutely. So if you go to the profile, you'll see the link. The link has many different options. It has the option for you to schedule your own appointment, to go to the website and to call and schedule. There is a scheduling coordinator who's available up until 11 p.m. Eastern time. So go ahead, call tonight. There's also going to be scheduling coordinators available tomorrow and Sunday, so over the weekend, noon to 5 p.m., where you can ask them to help you to schedule your appointment. All right, so Miss Stacy Pang, good night. What's the waiting time if my husband wants to file for me during this pandemic? So I'm seeing an average of 18 to 24 months. How does a company sponsor a person? Neil Turner, it's going to depend on your qualifications and whether so here are a number of considerations that really is going to determine the direction of the application, right? So how can you fit within the company's needs? Is there a labor certification required? And if so, is it possible for you to get approved through the labor certification? What are your qualifications? Does the employer need you on a permanent basis to be able to sponsor you? And there are I can think of 5 major categories, and then you have subcategories of those categories. So, it's going to come down to, do you have an employer? If you don't have an employer, can you do self-petition through the exceptional ability, through the extraordinary ability, through the national interest waiver? So those are ways that you can self-petition. You have to meet very specific criteria. And of course the name does hint as to what that means. So exceptional ability or extraordinary ability usually requires some advanced abilities in the field that you're in. The national interest waiver, you have to show that you're going to come to the United States to bring something of value to the United States. And it could be anything. You could be an entrepreneur that's coming to create a great business here that's needed in the United States. That could possibly get you the national interest waiver. Now, if you're serious about this is where the consultation is going to be very important for me to really dig deep into your background. What are your abilities, your qualifications? What do you have down the pipeline? And then tell you which one you will fit in. And in some cases, I will need your employer to be there, because usually it's the employer that has to be. If you do need the employer, it's going to be the employer that's going to have to be 100% involved in the process. All right. Okay, so great. Now I am also bringing the topic of if you lose a spouse, or if you know someone who's lost a U.S. citizen spouse during the green card process, or even before they got to file, do they have options? The answer is absolutely. They can file as the widow or widower of a U.S. citizen. If they have a pending application, it's going to automatically be transferred into the petition for a widow or widower. If you never filed, then at that point, the widow or widower, the person that has lost their U.S. citizen spouse, can file and petition on their own. So it is, and if you're here in the United States, adjustment of status may still be an option. And if you're outside of the United States, then you can also go through consular processing. And if you have a 2-year green card and your spouse unfortunately may have passed while you are going for the 10-year, there is also the option to apply without that spouse, showing, of course, that your marriage was still bona fide and that your spouse has passed by showing a death certificate. So I just want you to know that there are options available in tragic situations like that when you're trying to put the pieces together, you're trying to move forward, and you may want to be here in the United States, you want to stay here or you want to come here. That is a possibility. Now, even in the case that you have children who are under 21, so this is for the widow or widower of a U.S. citizen. If you have children, even if those children are not the children of the spouse that passed, they can also go along with you on this petition. Even if they're outside of the country, even if you are outside of the country. So keep that one in mind. If you know anyone who's trying to pick up the pieces, they're trying to move forward, and they're at a point where they're not sure what they need to do to get a move on, then you can share my information. You can share this live so that they understand that there are options to help them to along the way when they're trying to put the pieces back together. All right, so I don't see any more questions, so I am going to call it a night. But I'm not done yet. I'm going over to Instagram and Facebook. I'm ST Law Office on Facebook, and I am on Instagram, The Immigration Attorney. So you can hop on over there. As a matter of fact, that's where most of my videos are released. I release them on YouTube, and I also release them on Instagram. You can see tips, you can get updates. For example, the update on the fact that nurses right now can be sponsored without the labor certification. That is one of the updates I posted. So go ahead, and right now that is a hot trend that hospitals are going for medical workers, nurses, and physical therapists outside just to fill the demand for these essential roles. So you can get valuable information, you can get entertained at the same time, and you know, this helps you to understand that there are options out there even if you're out of status in the United States. So go ahead, hop on over to Instagram. If you go to the profile and you go to the link in my profile, you see the Instagram button, or you can go to the link, the actual link, and click on Instagram channel. You can go over there. I will be there in a minute where I'll continue answering questions, and then I will talk about this topic. How can I get a green card otherwise from marriage? That's a very broad question. And it's going to require, while it is possible, it's going to depend on so many different factors, your personal circumstances, your qualifications. You have to qualify through either an employer, either through a qualifying family member, through humanitarian means, like as a victim or as a T visa holder, a U visa holder. Those are for victims of crime or trafficking. Or if you have asylum, and also the diversity lottery if you are the citizen of a country that is allowed to apply for the diversity lottery. So that in a nutshell is how you can. And when I say family, other family members other than a spouse. So if you would really like to evaluate your particular options, go ahead and schedule an appointment. There's a scheduling coordinator who's available up until 11 p.m. tonight. I practice I practice U.S. immigration law in all 50 states and the globe. This is a federal practice, and so we have to work with USCIS offices, immigration courts, U.S. embassies, all over the United States and the globe. So no matter where you are, I'm very experienced with assisting my clients, no matter where you are in the US or in the world. So go ahead, get started right now. Let's evaluate your options. Get started right away. I'm heading on over to Instagram, so I will see you in a quick minute. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for your great questions.